Hi everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to my art journaling page. Today we're going to be doing a page to document an important event, which is the 50th year of the landing on the moon. So this was done the day of the 50th anniversary, and spaces, I've always been fascinated by space, so it was just something I felt I wanted to do. And it was funny because I've had this collage image sitting in my pile for a long time now, and it was just sort of the perfect image to use for this. So I'm just starting off making a sort of dark sky space type background. I'm starting off with the lapis, which is a really nice royal blue, going into the night and then into a Payne's grey. I didn't necessarily want to use a black, I just wanted to have that sort of really dark grey colour, so they're blending together. I'm using the same paintbrush as well to blend it all together, just to get that kind of unity of colour. Actually, I lied, I put black on the far right hand side so you can sort of see the difference in the grey and the black. As I was doing that, I was thinking about how I wanted to do this. Now, my idea was that I was going to have a moon and a figure coming out of it, and then some sort of quote to go on the page as well. Apart from that, I hadn't really sort of thought too much more about how this is going to go. It's one of those things where you have half an idea, but it's not fully formed, and it sort of gets more formed as you go along. So I was really pleased with how my background had turned out, and now I was just sort of waiting for it to dry and getting all my other bits and pieces organized. So I wanted just to blend in the blue a little bit more. It was just not quite, the shape wasn't quite right. It was sort of an odd angle to it, so I was just finishing off the shape, then getting my heat gun out and just drying it off. And again, sort of magic of television, you can kind of see it drying as you go. So this page is done in my Dina Wakley journal, and this is done on the cotton rag paper, which I didn't gesso beforehand. So because I'm using acrylic paint on it, it didn't really matter. But if you wanted to, you could certainly gesso it beforehand. It really doesn't matter. Once I put the extra Payne grey on, which I like, I decided I need to put a bit more blue on the page. So I'm just, from this angle and watching it, you think, what's she doing? You can't really see a difference. When you actually see it in real life, you do see that subtle sort of ombre shading happening. It's a little bit hard to see on screen, but you can certainly kind of see now where that blue is sitting on top of the Payne's grey. So I got an image of a moon. This is from a Wikipedia page, and I cut it out. It's just onto printer paper, so I could stick it on the page. I was originally planning to have a little bit more of the blue showing behind it, but you know, this is how things go when you're not really planned. You've still got the sort of shading behind it. So I've just got out some white and some gold acrylic ink, and I'm splattering. And this is my favourite tool for splattering, is using a fan brush, because you get nice big blobs and you get really fine blobs. But please be aware, you can see it happening off the top left hand side corner. You get spray everywhere. So you can see I'm actually getting a little bit savvy to this and starting to put a bit of cardboard up to protect my pens that sit in front of where I'm working. Usually I haven't, so they're usually covered in paint. Acrylic paint does dry permanent, so if you do splatter it on and you don't clean it up straight away, you will have it there forever. Just be aware. However, it does give you a beautiful effect, so you get this beautiful night sky happening. Because I do have really fine splatters and thicker splatters, I do want to have it dry before I start doing collage on the top, because I don't want to accidentally put my hand in it and spread it everywhere as well, which I have done numerous times in the past, because I'm not very patient. So to help keep my hands busy while I'm doing that and not on my page, I'm cutting out this image of my spaceman, who isn't actually a spaceman at all. This volcanologist from a National Geographic if you do love doing collage and you can get your hands on some, National Geographics are amazing for collage, even the old ones with the very dated photos. There's just some amazing photos in there that you can sort of use for all sorts of different things. And even though, you know, this is a volcanologist, I can kind of convince myself that it's a spaceman on the moon. You can also see I'm moving my moon closer to the edge of the bottom of my page, so I can see some of that blue peeping out from behind. Because one of my favourite things, I suppose, about listening to interviews of astronauts and so on, and you know, people on the International Space Station, is the fact that they see that beautiful glow, the blue glow of planet Earth. So I wanted to have some of that, even if it wasn't much, peeping out through on my page. So I'm just gluing down my astronaut onto my moon, and then he needed grounding, so I used some of the, again, volcanic rock he was standing on to be moon rock, and just cutting that out. So collage is all about using your imagination, and if you believe the story, well, you can hopefully sell it to other people and they'll believe it too. So I'm just using my glue to glue down the rest of my image and glue down my moon. You can see the ink wasn't particularly dry in the background. I've got some splodges of gold on there, but that's okay. And then I'm just gluing it down onto my page. Be aware when you're doing things like this, if you're gluing them over the spine, just to fold up your page to make sure that it all moves while the glue is wet. It just means if you do need to shift something or push it into the spine, binding a little bit, it will help. The other thing I'm doing is just putting some paper towel in between, just to blot off the excess ink without making a mess everywhere. So if it's still not drying, blotting off the extra ink is probably a great idea. So, and clean off around your edges. I put a little bit extra paint on and I tore my first page, but that's okay. That's what journals are all about. They're well loved. So once I've done that, now I'm going in to do my quotes and to do some different bits and pieces. So I'm just priming up my white pen to write around. And one of the first things that I'm going to write around is around the moon, to make sure that that is my focal image. And of course, what could you write? But this is one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. And I'm using that sort of asemic writing. This is much more readable than usual, but I'm still sort of using that same technique of quite large upstrokes and downstrokes, so it looks kind of really loopy. Now you can see I've got my phone out and I'm going on to Pinterest to look for another quote, because I wanted another quote on my page about the moon. And I'm using a white pencil to sort of sketch out where it's going to be. This is a white Stabilo oil pencil, so if I didn't really like it, I could get rid of it with a little bit of water. Because all the ink and the acrylic paint in the background is permanent, even just a wet wipe over the top will wipe that pencil away and it wouldn't ruin what I've got in the background. So it's a handy thing to have if you're not sure how your quote is going to fit in. The reason I like going to Pinterest to find my quotes is you can, one, find a whole heap of quotes, but two, they're usually written in an interesting way, different sizes, different fonts and so on. So it's a good way to get something that looks eclectic on your page. And if you're not someone who is a letterer, it's a good place to start. So I'm just going in, some of it's cursive, some of it's block letters, depending on which words I sort of want to have in focus. So the moon is a reminder that no matter what phase you're in, you are still whole, which I really loved together. So I'm just going back in once I've finished and thickening up some of my lines, which again is a technique that I really love to do, because once you've sort of got it written out, you can see what space you've got left to play with, and you can go in with your pen and fill in that space whatever way you want. You can also see I put my hand in wet paint pen. While it dries pretty quickly, you still need to give it a little bit of time to dry, and again, I'm really impatient, so having something like a bit of scrap paper there that you can put down to protect your hands as you're working is a really handy thing to do. So this is pretty much the end of the page, apart from just going in and fixing up a few different bits of the quote. It was a really simple page to do, but I really love how it turned out, and it was a really great way to document something that was important to me when I was growing up in my art journal, and something that I can go back to relook at. So I would encourage you, if there's something that is really important to you, or an event that's really important to you, put it into your art journal. Do something to celebrate it in somewhere that you work in and love working in, and see what you come up with. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye for now.